Kang Do-yoon woke up to the sound of alarms. Red lights flashed everywhere. The air tasted wrong, like metal and smoke. His body felt heavy, like he had been sleeping for a very long time. He was inside his cryosleep pod. The glass cover had cracked. Through the broken glass, he could see the ship was destroyed. Wires hung from the ceiling. Sparks flew from broken machines. The walls had holes in them, and he could see the black emptiness of space through those holes. Do-hyun pushed the pod open and fell to the floor. His legs did not work well. He had been frozen for too long. The emergency cryosleep had saved his life, but something terrible had happened while he slept. He remembered now. The mission. They were 4 people on the research ship, called Horizon's Edge. Their job was to study a strange signal near the Kepler drift, far from Earth. Captain Nari was leading them. Junho was the pilot. Sujin was the scientist. And Do-hyun was the engineer, the one who fixed things when they broke. He crawled across the floor, calling their names. His voice was weak and dry. He found Nari first. Her body was cold. The microasteroid had come through her section of the ship. She never had a chance to wake up. Junho was the same. And Sujin too. Do-hyun sat alone in the broken ship, surrounded by the bodies of his friends. The alarms kept screaming. The lights kept flashing. And outside the windows, there was nothing but empty space. No stars, he recognized. No planets. Nothing. He was completely alone. For a long time, he did not move. What was the point? The ship was destroyed. His friends were dead. He was so far from Earth that no one would ever find him. He could just sit here and wait to die. It would be easier that way. But then he thought about his father back in Busan. His father had lost his wife, Do-hyun's mother, when Do-hyun was only 10 years old. The old man had cried for one night. Just one night. Then he woke up the next morning, made breakfast, and went to work. He never stopped. He never gave up. Even when life was cruel, he kept moving forward. Do-hyun's father once told him something simple. The universe does not care if you live or die. So you must care. You must choose to live, even when it is hard. Especially when it is hard. Do-hyun stood up. His legs were shaking, but he stood up. He started to work. First, he checked the life support system. It was badly damaged. He had maybe 6 hours of air left. Not enough. He found the backup oxygen tanks and connected them manually. That gave him 2 more days. Next, he checked the hull. There were 3 holes where the micro-asteroids had punched through. Cold space was trying to get in. He could not fix them properly without materials he did not have. So he did something crazy. He took the emergency blankets, the thermal suits, and even pieces of his own uniform. He mixed them with the emergency sealant gel and covered the holes. It was ugly. It was not safe. But it worked. The ship stopped losing air. Then he went to the engine room. The main engine was completely destroyed. But the backup engine, a small one they used for emergencies, was still there. It was damaged, but not dead. Do-hyun spent 8 hours taking it apart and putting it back together. His hands bled from the sharp metal edges. His eyes burned from the smoke. But he did not stop. When he finally turned the engine on, it made a terrible sound, like a sick animal trying to breathe. But it worked. The ship had power again. Do-hyun laughed. It was a crazy laugh, the laugh of a man who should be dead, but was not. He was still alive. Against all logic, against all odds, he was still alive. But alive for what? He checked the navigation computer. The asteroid impact had knocked the ship completely off course. He was not near the Kepler drift anymore. He was somewhere else entirely. Somewhere no human had ever been before. The computer could not even tell him where he was. The stars outside did not match any known maps. He was lost in a part of space that Earth had never explored. Do-hyun felt fear then. Real fear. Not the fear of dying, but the fear of being alone forever. Of drifting through empty space until his food ran out, until his air ran out, until he became just another piece of debris floating in the void. But then the computer beeped. It had found something. A signal. Very faint, very far away, but definitely artificial. Something made by intelligent beings. Something that was not natural. Do-hyun stared at the screen. The signal was coming from a structure orbiting a small red star. The star was dying, giving off weak light. But the structure was definitely there. And it was definitely not human. His heart beat faster. Aliens. Real aliens. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. They had searched for centuries and found nothing. And now, here was proof. Right in front of him. He could try to turn around. Try to find his way back to Earth. But the engine was too weak. He did not have enough fuel. He did not have enough food or water. If he tried to go home, he would die somewhere in the darkness between stars. But if he went toward the signal, maybe he could find help. Maybe he could find supplies. Maybe he could find a way to survive. It was not really a choice at all. Do-hyun set the course for the alien structure. The weak engine pushed the broken ship forward, slowly, painfully. It would take several days to reach the destination. He used that time to sleep, to eat the emergency rations, to think about his life. He thought about his mother, who died too young. He thought about his father, who never gave up. He thought about the stars he had always loved, ever since he was a little boy looking up at the night sky from their small apartment in Bizen. He had always wanted to touch the stars. Now he was among them, alone and afraid, but still alive. On the fifth day, the structure came into view. Do-hyun looked through the window and forgot how to breathe. It was beautiful. A massive station made of crystal and light, floating in the darkness like a dream. It looked like a palace, like a cathedral, like something from a fairy tale. Towers reached up toward the dying star. Gardens seemed to grow on the outside, somehow alive in the vacuum of space. And as he watched, the lights on the station began to turn on. One by one, like a city waking up from sleep. Like it knew he was coming. Like it had been waiting for him. Do-hyun guided his broken ship toward the crystal station. His hands were shaking on the controls. He did not know if this was the smartest thing he had ever done or the most foolish. But he had no other choice. The station seemed to understand what he wanted. A section of the outer wall opened slowly, revealing a docking bay filled with soft blue light. It was like the station was inviting him inside. Like a host opening the door for a guest. He landed the horizon's edge carefully. The ship made terrible sounds as it touched down. Metal scraped against the smooth floor. Steam hissed from broken pipes. But the ship held together, just barely. Do-hyun put on his spacesuit and opened the airlock. He expected to step in the vacuum, into the cold emptiness of space. But instead, he found air. Real, breathable air. The station had atmosphere, somehow, even after what looked like thousands of years. He took off his helmet and breathed deeply. The air smelled strange, like flowers he had never smelled before, like rain on a planet he had never visited. It was clean and fresh and alive. The docking bay was enormous. His small ship looked like a toy in the corner of a giant room. The walls were made of something that looked like glass, but felt warm when he touched it. Lights followed him as he walked, turning on ahead of him and fading behind him. The station was responding to his presence. Do-hyun walked for hours, exploring room after room. Each one was more amazing than the last. He found a garden where plants grew without soil, their roots floating in glowing water. The leaves were silver and gold and colors he did not have names for. Some of the flowers turned to look at him as he passed, like they were curious about this strange visitor. He found a library filled with crystals instead of books. When he touched one of the crystals, images appeared in his mind. He saw alien cities, beautiful and vast, filled with beings that walked on two legs like humans, but had skin that glowed faintly in the dark. He saw spaceships traveling between stars. He saw celebrations and funerals, weddings and births. He saw an entire civilization, alive and thriving. And then he saw it end. The images became dark. The cities crumbled. The people screamed and ran, but there was nowhere to run. Something terrible had happened, something called the silence in the images. Do-hyun did not understand what it was, but he understood its result. The civilization was gone, wiped out. 1 trillion beings, dead in what seemed like moments. He dropped the crystal and stepped back, breathing hard. Who were these people? What had happened to them? And why was this station still here, still functioning, long after its creators had turned to dust? He kept exploring, looking for answers. In another room, he found statues. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They showed the alien beings in different poses, different ages, different roles. Some were warriors with weapons. Some were scholars with books. Some were mothers holding children. Each statue was incredibly detailed, so real that Do-hyun almost expected them to move. But one statue was different from the others. It stood in the center of the room, larger than the rest, made of pure white crystal. It showed a woman, or what looked like a woman, wearing a crown made of stars. Her face was beautiful and sad at the same time. Her eyes seemed to look directly at Do-hyun, no matter where he stood. Under the statue, there were words carved into the floor. Do-hyun could not read them, but somehow, as he stared at them, their meaning became clear in his mind. The station was translating for him. The last Empress of the Sunless Empire. She who stayed when all others fell. She who waits for the wanderer from the young world. Do-hyun read the words again. And again. Wanderer from the young world. What did that mean? He found more writings as he explored. Fragments of history. Pieces of prophecy. The Sunless Empire had ruled 1,000 worlds for 100,000 years. They were wise and powerful, masters of technology that humans could not even imagine. But they had grown old as a species. Their birth rates dropped. Their creativity faded. They were dying slowly, even before the silence came down in their final days. Their mystics had received a vision from something they called the cosmic tide, the universe itself. They believed was trying to tell them something. The vision spoke of a young world far across the galaxy. A world where beings lived short lives, but burned brightly with passion and hope. A world called Earth. The vision said that one day, long after the Empire had fallen, a wanderer from this young world would find the last refuge. This wanderer would carry the Empire's memory forward, would make sure that 1 trillion souls were not forgotten. Do-hyun laughed nervously. This was crazy. He was just an engineer from Bizen. He was not a chosen one. He was not a hero from a prophecy. He was just a man who got lucky enough not to die in a spaceship accident. But the station did not seem to agree. Every door opened for him. Every machine responded to his touch. The lights followed him like he was royalty. The station was treating him like he belonged here, like he was expected. He finally found the heart of the station. A massive chamber at the very center, shaped like a sphere. The walls were covered in patterns that moved and shifted, telling stories in a language of light. And in the center of the chamber, there was a pillar of soft golden light. Inside the pillar, floating like she was sleeping in water, was a woman. She looked like the statue, but alive. Her skin glowed faintly, like moonlight. Her hair was long and white, flowing around her as if moved by an invisible wind. She wore a simple dress, made of something that looked like starlight woven into fabric dot. She was beautiful. Not in a human way, but in a way that made Do-yoon's heart ache. Like looking at a sunset, or a perfect flower, or the first snow of winter. Beautiful in a way that made him feel both happy and sad. He walked closer, his feet moving without his permission. He stared at her face, at her closed eyes, at her lips that seemed ready to speak. And then her eyes opened. They were the color of galaxies, full of stars and darkness and ancient light. They looked at him, into him, through him. They saw everything he was, everything he had been, everything he might become. Her lips moved. Her voice was soft, like music, like wind through leaves. She spoke his name, his full name. Kang Do-yeon, she said. I have been waiting for you. Do-yoon could not speak, could not move, could not think. She smiled, and the smile was tired and hopeful and sad all at once. You are late, she said, but you are here. That is what matters. Do-yoon took a step backward. His heart was beating so fast he thought it might explode. This was impossible. All of this was impossible. How do you know my name? He asked. His voice came out weak and shaky. The woman stepped down from the pillar of light. Her feet touched the floor without making any sound. She moved like water, smooth and graceful. Up close, she was even more beautiful and even more strange. Her eyes kept changing colors, like the sky at sunset, shifting from purple to blue to gold. I have seen your face for 789 years, she said. I have spoken your name every morning when I woke and every night before I slept. I have held on to your image through centuries of loneliness, through the death of stars, through the silence of empty space. She reached out her hand toward his face, then stopped. Her fingers trembled slightly. I was beginning to think you would never come. Do-yoon shook his head. This is crazy. I am just an engineer. I fix broken machines. I am nobody special. You are human, she said. That alone makes you special. She told him to sit. She told him her story. Her name, in her own language, was impossible for human mouths to speak. But she had chosen a human name long ago, when she first started watching Earth from across the galaxy. She had named herself Yeonhwa, lotus flower, because the lotus grows in muddy water but blooms into something beautiful. She had been the Empress of the Sunless Empire, not by choice but by birth. Her mother was the Empress before her, and her grandmother before that. The crown was a weight she had carried since she was young. The empire had been dying for a long time before the silence came. Her people had grown tired. They had seen everything, done everything, learned everything. They had lived too long as a species, and they had lost the fire that made life worth living. Then the silence came. A plague, but not of the body. A plague of the mind. One by one, her people simply stopped. They stopped eating, stopped moving, stopped breathing. Not because they were sick, but because they no longer wanted to live. They had lost hope. Yeonhwa watched her entire civilization die around her. Her family, her friends, her lovers, everyone she had ever known, gone in less than a year. But she did not stop. She could not. Because just before the silence began, she had received a vision from the cosmic tide. She saw a face. A human face. Young and tired and stubborn. She saw Earth. A small blue world so far away. She saw a ship, broken and drifting, carrying one survivor toward her station. The cosmic tide told her to wait, to prepare, to keep the Empire's memory alive until the Wanderer arrived. So she did, for 789 years. Do you understand what that means? She asked Do-yeon. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were full of pain. 789 years alone, watching stars die, watching galaxies spin, counting the seconds, the minutes, the hours, talking to myself to remember how to speak, holding on to hope when hope seemed like foolishness. Do-hyun listened, and his heart broke for her. He could not imagine such loneliness. He had been alone for only a few weeks, and it had nearly destroyed him. She had endured centuries. "Why me?" he asked. "Why did your vision show my face? There are billions of humans. Why not someone important? A leader? A scientist? Someone who could actually help?" Yanwa smiled. It was a tired smile, but real. "The cosmic tide does not choose the powerful," she said. "It chooses the stubborn, the ones who refuse to die when they should, the ones who keep going when all logic says to stop." She stood up and walked to the wall. She touched it, and the patterns began to move, forming images. "Your species is young," she said. "You have existed for only a blink of cosmic time. But in that short time, you have done impossible things. You have cured diseases that should have killed you. You have built machines that carry you between worlds. You have looked up at the stars and said, 'We will go there,' and then you went." The images showed human history. Cave paintings, pyramids, ships crossing oceans, rockets launching into space. Do-hyun watched his species grow and struggle and survive. "My people watched yours for a long time," Yanwa continued. "We considered contacting you, teaching you, guiding you. But we decided you were too young, too primitive. We thought we had plenty of time." She turned back to face him. "We were wrong. The silence came, and we ran out of time. But the cosmic tide gave us one last chance. You." She led him to another part of the chamber. There, in a smaller pillar of light, was a crystal. But this was not like the others he had seen. This one was massive, as tall as a building, and it glowed with inner fire. Millions of tiny lights swirled inside it like a galaxy. "This is the archive," Yanwa said. "Inside it is everything my people ever were. Our history, our art, our science, our dreams. The memories of 1,000,000,000,000 souls. It is the only thing that survived the silence." She looked at Do-hyun with desperate hope in her eyes. "The archive needs a keeper. Someone to bond with it, to carry its memories, to share them with the universe. Every survivor of my people tried. All of them failed. The archive rejected them. Why? Because my people had lost the one thing the archive needs. The one thing that makes consciousness worth preserving." She touched his chest, right over his heart. "Hope, real hope. The stubborn, foolish belief that tomorrow can be better than today. That life is worth fighting for." She stepped back. "My people lost that long before the silence came. But humans have it. You have it. I saw it in my vision. I saw you, broken and bleeding in your ruined ship, refusing to die. Refusing to give up. That is what the archive needs." Do-hyun looked at the massive crystal. Inside it, 1,000,000,000,000 souls waited. An entire civilization preserved in light and memory, hoping for someone to carry them forward. "What happens if I bond with it?" he asked. "I do not know," Yanwa admitted. "No human has ever tried. It might work perfectly. It might kill you. It might change you in ways neither of us can predict." She took his hands in hers. Her skin was warm, warmer than he expected. "I am not asking you to decide now," she said. "I am asking you to consider it, to understand what is at stake. 1,000,000,000,000 voices, waiting to be heard again. 1,000,000,000,000 lives, hoping not to be forgotten." Do-hyun looked at the archive. He looked at Yanwa. He thought about his father's words, about choosing to live even when it was hard. This was not his responsibility. He did not ask for this. He was just a man who got lost in space. But maybe that was exactly why he was here. I need time to think, he said. Yang nodded. You have as much time as you need. I have waited 789 years. I can wait a little longer. But her eyes, those galaxy eyes, were full of fear. Fear that he might say no. Fear that her centuries of waiting might be for nothing. Doyun walked to the archive. He looked up at its impossible height, at the swirling lights inside. He reached out his hand, and before he could think about it, before he could change his mind, he touched the crystal. Light exploded everywhere, and Doyun began to see. The moment Doyun touched the archive, he stopped being just himself. A flood of light poured into his mind. Not just light, but memories. Not just memories, but lives. Thousands of them. Millions of them. 1 trillion souls, all trying to fit inside one small human brain. He screamed. He could not help it. The pain was beyond anything he had ever felt. It was like his skull was cracking open, like his thoughts were being torn apart. Like everything that made him Doyun was being drowned in an ocean of alien consciousness. He saw a mother holding her newborn child for the first time, crying with joy. He saw a soldier dying on a battlefield, thinking of the family he would never see again. He saw a scientist discovering a cure for a disease, jumping up and down with excitement. He saw an old man sitting alone, watching the sunset, ready to die. 10,000 lifetimes crashed into him at once. 100,000 years of history tried to pour into a brain that was only 34 years old. His body collapsed. His heart stopped beating. His brain began to shut down. He was dying, but then he felt something else. A hand holding his. A voice speaking to him through the chaos. Hold on, I am here. Hold on. Double quotes. Y-E-O-N. She had entered his mind somehow. Her consciousness wrapped around his like a shield, protecting him from the worst of the flood. She could not stop the memories from coming, but she could help him survive them. Do not try to hold everything, she said. Let them flow through you. You are a river, not a cup. Let the water pass. Doyun did not understand. How could he let go? The memories were too strong, too real. Each one demanded his attention. Each one wanted to be remembered. Focus on my voice, Ian said. Only my voice. Everything else is just noise. He tried. He focused on her words, on the sound of her, on the feeling of her mind next to his. Slowly, painfully, the chaos began to calm. The memories were still there, still flowing, but they were no longer drowning him. They were settling into the bottom of his mind like sand settling in water. And as the chaos faded, Doyun began to see something else. Ian was memories. He saw her as a child, running through crystal hallways, laughing at something. He saw her as a young woman, wearing a crown for the first time, looking terrified. He saw her watching her mother die, her face still and empty, holding back tears because empresses do not cry. He saw her lose everyone she loved, one by one, to the silence. He saw her scream at the cosmic tide, demanding to know why. Why her? Why did she have to stay when everyone else was allowed to rest? He saw 789 years of loneliness. Not all at once, but in pieces. Mornings where she forgot why she should wake up. Nights where she talked to walls just to hear a voice. Years where she considered ending her vigil, ending everything, finally finding peace. But she never did. Because she had seen his face, and she had promised to wait. Doyun felt tears on his cheeks. Not for himself, but for her. For the weight she had carried. For the hope she had kept, alive against all reason. And she saw his memories too. She saw a 10-year-old boy standing at his mother's funeral, not crying because his father told him to be strong. She saw that same boy, years later, crying alone in his room when he thought no one could hear. She saw a young man looking up at the stars, making a promise that he would reach them someday. She saw him in the broken ship, bleeding and broken, refusing to die, refusing to give up, patching holes with his own clothes, fixing engines with his bare hands, laughing like a madman when he survived. "I understand now," she whispered in his mind. "Why the cosmic tide chose you. You are not special because you are strong. You are special because you break and you fix yourself and you keep going. Over and over, forever." The bonding continued. Hours passed, or maybe days. Do-hyun could not tell. Time had no meaning inside the archive. He absorbed millions of years of history, science, art, and philosophy. Not all of it, that would be impossible, but enough. Enough to understand. Enough to remember Dodd when he finally opened his eyes again. He was lying on the floor of the chamber. His body felt strange, like he had been taken apart and put back together slightly differently. Yanwo was kneeling beside him, holding his hand. "You survived," she said. There were tears on her face. He had never seen her cry before. Do-hyun sat up slowly. His head was heavy with new knowledge, new memories, new understanding. He looked at his hands. They looked the same, but they felt different. He was still Do-hyun, still human, but he was also something more now. "The archive," he said. "I can feel it. Inside me." Yanwo nodded. "You are the keeper now. The memories of my people live in you. When you speak for 1,000,000,000,000 souls." It should have been terrifying. It should have been overwhelming. But instead, Do-hyun felt strangely calm. The voices in his head were not screaming anymore. They were waiting, patient, trusting him to carry them forward. "What happens now?" he asked. Yanwo stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the dying red star cast weak light on the crystal walls of the station. "That is your choice," she said. "You could stay here with me. The station has enough supplies for centuries. We could study the archive together, learn everything my people knew, become wise beyond measure." She turned to look at him. "Or you could go back to Earth." Do-hyun thought about it. The station was beautiful. Yanwo was lonely and needed companionship. He could stay here, safe and comfortable, until the end of his days. But that was not why the archive had chosen him. That was not why he had survived. "I have to go back," he said. "The memories are not just for me. They are for everyone. For all of humanity." Yanwo smiled. It was a sad smile, but also proud. "I thought you would say that." "Come with me," Do-hyun said suddenly. The words came out before he could stop them. "You have been alone for too long. Come with me to Earth. See the young world you watched for so many centuries." Yanwo's eyes widened. "I cannot leave the station. It needs a guardian. If I go, the systems will fail, and the archive backup will be lost." "Then transfer the backup," Do-hyun said. "Put it in my ship. We will carry it with us. Your ship is barely functional. Then help me fix it. Your people built stations that lasted for thousands of years. Surely you can help me repair one small human ship." Yanwo stared at him. For the first time since he had met her, she looked uncertain. Afraid, not of danger, but of hope. "You want me to leave everything I have known for 700 years? To travel to a world I have only seen in visions? To live among beings who might fear me, hate me, reject me?" Do-hyun walked to her. He took her hands in his, the way she had done for him. "Yes," he said, "because you have been waiting long enough. Because you deserve to see a sunrise again. Because I am not leaving you here alone." Yanwo looked at their joined hands. Her skin glowed softly against his. "I have forgotten what hope feels like," she whispered. "Then let me remind you," Do-hyun said. For a long moment, she was silent. Then, slowly, a smile spread across her face. A real smile. A smile that made her look young again. Despite her centuries, You humans really are stubborn, she said. The most stubborn in the galaxy, Dohyun agreed. And for the first time in 500 years, Yanwo laughed.